Hey, welcome. We live our lives surrounded by them. But how often do we actually stop and think about what they are? I'm talking about cities. It's a concept so fundamental to modern life that we just kind of take it for granted. But the city is honestly one of humanity's most complex and important inventions. So yeah, let's dive into this.
So let's start with the most basic question of all, right? If you strip away all the noise, the traffic, the skyscrapers, what are we actually looking at? What's the essential thing that makes a city different from, say, a really big town or a village?
And boom, here we have it, a really clear definition. The key ingredients are right there. It has to be permanent, it has to be dense, and there's this major shift away from farming. See, it's not just about size, it's about what people do. People gather in cities not just to live, but to do specialized work, to trade, to govern, to create. This is the big idea we're going to build on.
Okay, so now that we know what a city is, let's take a trip back in time. Because this idea of living all packed together, relying on each other's specialized skills, well, that was absolutely revolutionary.
It's so easy to forget this, but for the vast majority of our time on this planet, humans were rural. Living in cities is a pretty new experiment, relatively speaking. It was a fundamental break from our hunter-gatherer and farming past, a conscious choice to build a totally new kind of human ecosystem.
And what's so fascinating is that this wasn't just a one-off invention. The idea of the city popped up all over the world, independently. In Mesopotamia, you had Uruk, what many consider the first true city. Then you have Mohenjo-Daro over in the Indus Valley, already using grid plans and sanitation systems. That suggests a society that really cared about public health and order. At the same time, across the ocean in the Americas, the Norte Chico civilization was building its own cities, and in West Africa, Djenné became this major hub for trade, built on a whole different model.
Okay, so those early places grew into the complex systems we know today. But what are the common design principles? Like, how is the actual hardware of a city laid out?
Well, it pretty much boils down to one of two patterns. First, you've got the radial, or spoke-and-wheel design. This often grows organically from a central point, like a castle or a marketplace. You can still see the ghost of this in Moscow's ring roads. And then there's the grid plan, super logical, orderly, and incredibly efficient. They were using it in ancient Pakistan, and it's the very blueprint for modern Manhattan. Just two simple ideas that shape how billions of us get around every single day.
So when you look at this list, you realize a city isn't just a place, it's a platform. It really is a machine for living. It's our hub for government, for the economy, for our culture. It's that critical node that connects us through roads and communication. At its very core, a city is the platform that organizes pretty much everything, from where we live to how we trade and govern ourselves. Now, let's fast forward to today. Because that ancient idea, well, it has completely taken over our planet in a shockingly short amount of time. The scale of what's happening right now is something our ancestors could never have imagined.
Just think about that for a second. At the dawn of the 20th century, for every 100 people on Earth, 85 of them lived a rural life. The city was the exception, not the rule. But then,
this happened. In just over 1 century, we crossed this massive, monumental threshold. For the first time in all of human history, the city became our main habitat. This is, without a doubt, the single greatest and fastest migration our species has ever undertaken, period. And it's not slowing down. In fact, this chart shows it's accelerating. By the middle of this century, nearly 7 billion of us will be living in cities. To put that in perspective, that's almost the entire world's population from just a decade ago. This incredible concentration of people, of resources, of ideas, it forces us to ask a really important question. Is this intense urbanization a good thing or a bad thing for us and for the planet?
And the answer, as it turns out, is, well, it's complicated. Because cities are a paradox. They are at the very heart of our biggest problems, but they might also hold the keys to our most promising solutions.
let's break that down. On the one hand, cities concentrate problems, right? They create urban heat islands, they put immense stress on water supplies, and they're hotspots for pollution. But on the other hand, that exact same density can be a huge part of the solution. Think about it. An apartment dweller who walks or takes public transport has a much smaller ecological footprint than someone in a sprawling suburb.
And this quote really nails the opportunity we have. The key insight is that a well-designed, dense city can actually have a smaller ecological footprint per person. So it's not about getting rid of cities, it's about building them smarter. A compact, efficient city isn't the problem. It might just be the most important tool we have in the fight for a sustainable future.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We are all in on this urban experiment. The blueprint of the city is now the blueprint for all of humanity. So the question is no longer if we will live in cities. That ship has sailed. The real question is, what kind of cities will we choose to build, and will they become our saviors or will they be our downfall? The choice really is ours to make.